Hi everyone, this is Paul here from the Magdalene Centre. Today I'm doing an astrology report for the week commencing the 24th of July. I'll be outlining the key aspects and transits taking place this week and giving an overview of what it all means. Before I do that, I just want to clarify, as I always do, that the astrology doesn't control our lives. It gives us a framework to help us understand what's unfolding around us, helps to recognise where the direction of growth is and the kind of lessons for us to be learning each time in order to empower ourselves going forward. But from there, it's up to each and every one of us to take responsibility for how we utilise the information, and it's making sure that our actions are guided by wisdom, not egoic impulses, so we don't create karma for ourselves going forwards. Now, in terms of the astrology this week I'll start off with the moon's transit as usual, but this week is comparatively quiet compared to last week. So we start with the moon. She begins in Aries, so this is a time where you may feel that kind of drive to take action, to make things happen, and to kind of be in touch with our key desires that we want to work on. But on Wednesday itself, she will enter Taurus, and this is a time where you may feel that kind of desire to just slow down, to become more grounded and spend more, be more connected with the body and spend time in nature to help us ground out. It's taking things on a more step-by-step basis. On Saturday, she'll enter Gemini, and this is a time for us to kind of work on things like communication, or to kind of embrace that curiosity that drives growth. And it's about not just working on the quality of our speech, but it's also about our capacity to listen to other people and receive information properly. It's a time for kind of researching. Then on Monday, the moon will enter her home sign of Cancer, and this is a time where we feel that desire to kind of step back or focus on nurturing ourselves. It's about creating that space to get in touch with the emotions without being drowned by them, so allow them to flow but not be attached to them in any way, so that they can just flow on through without disrupting our centre of being. In terms of the aspects this week, the first aspect will be on Thursday. This is an exact trine between Mars and Leo and Jupiter retrograde in Sagittarius. So obviously this aspect will be felt throughout the week, so it's building up to Thursday before the energy starts waning off. But depending on how sensitive we are, I may already be feeling it before this point. But with it on Thursday, the theme of the trine is about expansive action. It's about the expansive energy of Jupiter in touch with our actions may kind of prompt us to kind of take risks, to expand the level of activity that we're doing. So it could be embracing new projects, but it also gives us an opportunity to develop greater understanding about our own desires and the actions that we take. And with Jupiter retrograde, this is times more about getting in touch with wisdom rather than focusing on anything outwardly directed. So all that expansive energy is turned inwards. So it's an opportunity for us to understand our own desire nature better, and to bring the desire function under the guidance of wisdom, and rather than operating from the ego and the need for instant gratification. And with Mars and Leo, it's also about understanding where is our desire based on a wish for other people to acknowledge us, to see us, or to give us approval or validation, and where do we have that need to be the centre of attention, as it were, because we're operating from the ego. And how can we transform this so our actions our actions are aligned with right action? Where can we transform it so that we're taking creative action that will not just benefit us but will benefit other people? So with Jupiter in Sagittarius, ideally we're aiming to use the Jupiter retrograde to connect us with the higher vision of Sagittarius, to connect us with the natural laws of the higher ideals, which are the foundation of any healthy society, and enable us to operate from a place of faith and optimism in life rather than cynicism, pessimism, and the all we're doing everything for ourselves. So it's about expanding our awareness and recognizing the need to honor that oneness, honor the fact that we're interconnected, and it's to have that broad-mindedness in how we take action, and it's seeking to have our actions guided by wisdom and guided by an understanding of how everything is interconnected. Action is important in order for anything to manifest, but it needs to be guided by a set of principles, it needs to be guided by a moral compass. Otherwise, we end up taking action which can bring harm to the people and in the process bring karma upon ourselves. On Monday, the sun will be in a exact trine to Chiron, but again, this energy will be building up to it, so it may feel this earlier on. But this trine between the sun and Chiron is about an opportunity to transform the way we try and shine our light, if you like. The sun is in its home sign of Leo, so this is a time where it's about embracing who we really are, radiating our authentic self through being present rather than acting out certain roles that we believe will bring social acclaim or validation. And with Chiron in Aries, it's about the wound to the I am and the wound to the ego's capacity to take action. This is all tied up in old conditioning. It's not who we really are. The wound is to the ego, not to the true self. So if we can transform our level of awareness, if we can operate from who we really are, and also recognise that we don't shine our light for our own benefit, we shine it for the benefit of everybody, then we can operate from a level of consciousness where we don't take things as personal anymore. We don't limit ourselves through using negative terms after the phrase I am. We recognise that every single one of us has the potential to radiate love and light. Every one of us, if we're operating from the true self, is love and light. However, for whatever reason, for whatever conditioning experiences we've gone through, whether it's ourselves or other people, may not recognise that truth, and instead we allow the ego to get a foothold. We allow it to talk us out of doing things because we believe we're not good enough, we're not smart enough, we don't know enough. Whereas the true self is in touch with intuition, is in touch with a constant guidance from a higher power, whether you want to call it God, universal consciousness, the divine, whatever term you feel comfortable with. It's just labels at the end of the day, it's all the same thing. But who we really are is already connected with that level of consciousness and already knows what we should be doing, already knows what actions we need to be taking. It's only because we allow the ego to gain a foothold, or we base our sense of self on the ego, which is just basically a accumulation of all our past conditioning. It's not actually based in the present moment, and the present moment is the only thing that's real. If we can learn to live in the present moment and to be who we are, then whenever we're faced with a choice and we need to take a course of action, then we allow that wisdom to guide us. We don't worry about are we good enough, because that's just the ego's conditioning trying to keep us small so the ego stays in control. And then the following day the sun will be in exact square to Uranus, and this aspect is about, at the mundane level, it's our willingness to embrace change, and with it being to the sun, it's about our capacity to change a sense of who we are, to change the level of consciousness we're operating from the ego to the higher self. And it's about allowing the intuition to guide us, of not worrying about social approval. And with Uranus being in Taurus, it's about transforming our relationship with the material world. It's transforming our values from materialistic ones that we've been indoctrinated with through whatever society we happen to be raised in, and instead recognise that there are deeper spiritual values that underpin everything. And Uranus is about trying to awaken us to our oneness with everything around us. It's about breaking through the ego structures and recognising that we're all part of one human race. We're all part of humanity, and if we engage in the illusions of separation and we seek to gain everything for ourselves at the expense of other people, then it violates that fundamental sense of oneness that underpins everything. So it's very important that we do have that humility to recognise where we're operating from a value system that doesn't resonate with our soul, and instead learn to operate from a place of being, to let go of the labels or how we base a sense of worth, to let go of basing our sense of worth on what's external to us, instead recognising that by virtue of being connected with God, we're all worthy of love and belonging. We don't need to have certain possessions in order to fit in. We don't need to adhere to society's materialistic values in order to be valuable, as it were. Our true value comes from being who we are. It comes from embodying that love, of being humble, of being loving, of being open, being compassionate with one another, of honouring the light of other people around us, of sharing what we have, of having that joy of creating something as communities rather than doing everything on us for our own benefit. It's about that love of humanity as a whole. It's about moving beyond the eye of the ego and moving to the eye of self. It's about that capacity to understand that change at the mundane level is a true constant. Our real self, however, is unchanging. It's always our true self is connected with God. It's always been based in love and truth. And if we can operate from that level and work together with this kind of spirit and recognise where we need to change how we do things in our own day-to-day lives in order to reflect that higher truth, then life can become more magical. We have that more love and belonging of being part of a member of a community that is focused on the empowerment of all and the good of all, and by sharing what we have rather than believe in the old mantra that if we give something away that other person gets more gains than we lose. It's moving more to a win-win way of seeing things and win-win way of sharing our resources so that both parties benefit equally. It's not one gains at the expense of the other person. This week also all takes place under the obviously Mercury retrograde, and Mercury's in Cancer now, so part of an underlying theme throughout this week will also be about overcoming old conditioning, of recognising where the psychology that we operate from is often something that we've inherited through the condition that we faced when we were very young. But these aren't the traits aren't something that we have to hold on to. They're not who we are. It's about recognising or going through the process of separating out, because Cancer deals with our past and our heritage, if you like. Now, no one's heritage is all good or all bad. We gain strengths and we gain collective weaknesses from the kind of background we were raised in. But it doesn't mean that we're doomed to always have the same strengths and weaknesses. We have the capacity to let go of the beliefs, or let go of the conditioning, or let go of the kind of ideas we're raised on that do not allow us to grow and allow us to transform, allow us to renew ourselves through transforming the mind, while still honouring the strengths that we gained from what we've done in the past. So it's keeping a hold of the strengths but transforming the weaknesses through letting go of any toxic conditioning that prevents us from being our true self and prevents us from operating from the truth of oneness. And it's about connecting with recognizing how the way we respond to things emotionally is often based on past conditioning. It's not based on what's actually happening here and now. So taking that step back and being in that witness position, of having that witness consciousness to be present with the emotions and observe what's going on internally, so observing our internal responses to our environment. Because by mastering our internal responses, that is where we gain true power, where the world around us ceases to be able to pull us off centre and try and drag us into the past or try and stop us from growing. If we let go of what doesn't serve us from our past and instead learn to live in the present moment, we unlock a lot of psychic energy. We become much more intuitive, because we're no longer having the intuition drowned out by emotional responses triggered by egoic thoughts or egoic obsessions. It's transforming that level, so we're no longer operating from the past. We seek to be in the present, be present here and now, and be a loving presence rather than someone who is still governed by old conditioning. So I hope that's a useful guide for this week. As I said, it's comparatively quiet this time around compared to last week. There's far fewer aspects, But it's important to use this time to utilise the opportunities to let go of the past, to spend time in reflection, spend time doing meditations that focus on being present as opposed to visualization or anything like that. It's about being present with ourselves, to checking in with ourselves and utilizing this time to let go of the past and move on and operate from new beginnings. I mean, this is also time, this is the second half of Mercury retrograde, so this is time we had the Sun conjunct Mercury Sunday prior, and this is a seed of new beginning. So during this period, as we're moving into the second half of Mercury retrograde, there may be an urge to try and make things happen prematurely. This is a time to take things slowly, get the information together of if we know what new goals we want to set, or we know what we want to be achieving, or what the new beginnings are that our true self is sowing the seeds of at this time through this conjunction on the Sunday just gone. This is the time to gather together the information, or recognise or research what we need to have, or what we need to be doing that gives these new seeds of new beginnings the best possible start. And when Mercury does turn direct the following Wednesday on the 31st of August, we're in the best position possible to move forward with armed with the relevant information and wisdom needed to make the new beginnings a reality so that they can manifest. And it's a time to focus on taking things slowly, so making sure that we do everything thoroughly, so we check that the I's are dotted and T's are crossed in whatever we're doing, and we don't just make assumptions. We make sure that we always seek the truth at every stage of the process of gathering information, and we don't just assume that everything is as we think it is. It's always, don't assume anything. It's always double check, always focus on seeking the truth of the situation as it is, not how we want it to be, because it's from being in a place of truth that we're empowered to pursue the course of action that is the correct one based on the new beginnings we want to create in our lives. So may this coming week bring you many new insights and opportunities to figure out new directions in life that we want to be taking, and to transform go through whatever transformation of sense of self that allows us to break through past conditioning and allows us to operate based on the intuition and guidance coming from spirit, and live in alignment with our own personal truth through radiating presence that comes from being rather than thinking or acting. So may the week bring you many blessings. Take care.